Hello, this is the second video of our story, The Three Sisters, from the Brothers Grimm first edition. Then the eagle let him go and flew off into the forest. The king felt bad about having also sold his second daughter to a wild beast and didn't dare tell her anything about it. 6 weeks passed, and in the seventh, the princess went out one day on the lawn in front of the castle to water the linseed. And all at once, a splendid parade of handsome knights came riding up, and at their head was the handsomest king of all, who dismounted and cried out, "Up you go, my maiden dear! Come wed the eagle, no need to fear." And before she could answer him, she had already been lifted onto his horse and raced off with him into the forest, flying like a bird. "Farewell, farewell!" The king and queen waited a long time for the princess to come back, but no matter how long they waited, she did not return. Then the king finally revealed that he had promised her to an eagle when he once been in trouble, and the eagle must have fetched her. After the king got over his sadness somewhat, he remembered the eagle's promise, went down to the lawn, and found 2 golden eggs, which weighed 100 pounds. Money is a sign of pity, thought the king, and he dismissed all gloomy thoughts from his mind. He resumed his merrymaking once more and lived luxuriously until he ran through the 200 pounds of gold. Then the king returned to the castle in the forest, and the last of the princesses had to boil the potatoes. The king didn't want to hunt any more hares in the forest or any more birds in the sky, but he did desire to eat some fish. So the princess had to weave him a net, which he took with him to a pond not far from the castle. A small boat was there, and he got in it and threw the net into the water. On his very first try, he caught a bunch of beautiful flounders with red speckles. When he wanted to row ashore with his catch, the boat wouldn't budge, and he couldn't get it to move, no matter how much he tried. All of a sudden, an enormous whale came puffing up to him and cried out, "Who said you could catch the subjects of my realm and take them away with you? This will cost you your life." As the whale said this, he opened his jaws as if he were going to swallow the king and the little boat as well. When the king saw his terrible jaws, he completely lost his courage and recalled that he had a third daughter. "Spare my life," he cried out, "and you shall have my third daughter." "That's fine with me," roared the whale. "I'll also have to give you something. I don't have gold, that's not good enough for me, but the floor of my sea is plastered with precious pearls. I'll give you 3 sacks full of them. In the 7th month, I'll come and fetch my bride." Then he dived down into the water, while the king rowed ashore and brought the flounders home. Yet, when they were baked, he refused to eat any of them. And when he looked at his daughter, the only one left, and the most beautiful and loveliest of them all, he felt as if 1,000 knives were cutting his heart. 6 months passed, and the queen and princess didn't know what was wrong with the king, for he did not smile once during all that time. In the 7th month, the princess was in the courtyard, in front of a man-made well, drew a glass of water. Suddenly, a coach with 6 white horses and men clad entirely in silver came driving up. A prince stepped out of the coach. He was more handsome than any of the others. When she handed it to him, a prince she had never seen in her life, she asked for a glass of water, and when she handed it to him, he embraced her and lifted her into the coach. Then they drove back through the gate, over the field, towards the pond. "Farewell, you maiden dear. You are bound to wed the whale down there." The queen stood at the window and watched the coach as it moved off in the distance. When she was unable to find her daughter, her heart was saddened, and she called her and looked for her everywhere, but the daughter was nowhere to be seen or heard. When the queen was certain the princess could not be found, she began to weep, and now the king revealed to her that a whale must have fetched their daughter, for he had been forced to promise their daughter to him indeed. that was the reason he had been so sad. The king wanted to comfort his wife and told her about the great treasure that they would now get for the princess. However, the queen did not want to hear anything about it, and said her only child was more dear to her than all the treasure in the world. During that time, the whale prince had carried off the princess. His servants had carried 3 tremendous sacks into the castle, which the king found at the door. When he opened them, he found they were full of big, beautiful, and precious pearls, just as large as the fattest peas imaginable. All of a sudden, he was rich again, and richer than he had ever been before. He acquired his cities and castles, but this time he didn't resume his luxurious way of living. Instead, he became quiet and thrifty. Whenever he thought about what had happened to his 3 daughters, the wild beasts, that perhaps they had already been eaten up, he lost all zest for life. Meanwhile, the queen couldn't be consoled and wept more tears for her daughters than all the pearls the whale had given them. Finally, she became more calm and peaceful, and after some time she was happy again, for she gave birth to a handsome baby boy. Since God had given them the child so unexpectedly, he was named Reynald, the miracle child. The boy grew big and strong, and the queen often told him about his 3 sisters, who were being held prisoners by 3 beasts in the magic forest. When he turned 16, he demanded some armor and a sword from the king, and when he received all this, he decided to embark on an adventure, so he blessed his parents and set forth. Well, that's the second video of our story. The last video will come. Hope you guys enjoyed the story today. Good day.